holiday shopping, and it's December, so it is time for these teams in the NFL to really get going here, especially the Eagles. And on to talk about the Eagles and some of the games this weekend, the football scientist, as he is every Thursday at this time, Casey Joyner, ESPN.com NFL insider, the football scientist, joins us right now on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN FM. Casey, what's up?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Not too much. Let's get your thoughts here on this. Let's kind of start with DeMarco Murray, not the off-the-field stuff, but really how he's been used this season. I read a stat the other day that going back to his Cowboys days last season, 91% of his runs came from under center. He comes to Philadelphia 1 year later, and that drops to 16. So is it just that? Is he just a bad fit? Is he struggling? Is he not running well? Or is it both, in your opinion, Casey?
I think that they've got the right idea doing what they did last week, where you say, okay, we're not going to play Murray the way that Dallas did last year, so let's utilize him from a game plan perspective. We've got a team that can stop a power run game really well. Let's not use him. If they don't handle speed very well, let's get Sproles and Barner out there, and let's get our fast guys out there. And if they don't handle power well, then we use Murray. I think that's a better approach to take than what they have been taking earlier this year, which is basically we're going to use him in all situations. And I think doing it this way is actually going to make him more productive and get the Eagles better use out of the rest of their talent.
So, Casey, then you do buy sort of Chip's spin when he said it was a matchup thing strictly, and things should change against Buffalo?
I buy it just in the sense that that's what you should do. If Bill Belichick made this move, everybody would be like, yeah, look what a great move it was. And Chip doesn't always do that, but if you look through his history, he will attack matchups in this way. So do I do it against Buffalo? Yeah, probably, because they're not quite as good of a team at handling power running as New England is, but they're not, they don't have the smallest defense either. So I might let's put it this way, I wouldn't go quite to the extreme they did last week. I might try and bring it back to a little more balance.
Now, you bring up a good point there, Casey. You mentioned if Bill Belichick did it, you're right. Nobody would bat an eye. But he has a history of making adjustments from week to week, maybe more so than any other coach in this league. Chip Kelly, on the other hand, has been pretty much a steadfast system guy. So the adjustments from week to week necessarily aren't there. So doesn't that raise at least a little question about maybe this is going to be the way it's going to be the rest of the season instead of from week to week?
I would hope that it was, remember last year when they had the game against Washington and Ertz got all those passes, when he catch 15 passes and the team record? That was in part because Washington's secondary was just in bad shape. I think we were on our fourth-string strong safety who'd played 5 plays in his career. I mean, it was something just, really extreme that make you go, okay, if you don't attack this matchup, you're asking for trouble. So maybe the idea is that Kelly's going to run his system unless he runs up against a situation like he did last week, which is where we know they're playing the run defense so well, the Patriots were, that the Eagles know we cannot run our standard offense. We have to do something different. Maybe they just have to look for extreme situations of that nature where it's either a weakness on the other team or extreme weakness or an extreme strength where they make the change, and otherwise they go par for the course. And I think if that's the case, we'd probably find that out this week because Buffalo has a good defense, but there's not anything on their defense where we go, this is something we definitely can't do. So I feel we'll see. We'll figure out the future here next week.
Casey Joyner, football scientist, ESPN.com, NFL insider. Let's go to the problems that the Bills and their offense kind of present for the Eagles, specifically LaShawn McCoy. How has he been fitting in Buffalo with the offense of Greg Roman there, the offensive coordinator? How is McCoy done with the Bills so far? I know he was banged up earlier this season, Casey.
He's done fantastic of late, but here's the thing that stands out for the Bills. If you look at their rankings in the NFL, they rank 4th in rushing yards per game, 7th in rush yards per attempt, but they also rank 9th in net yards per pass attempt, and they rank 7th in interception rate. So you think Tyrod Taylor's going to come in there and it's going to be he's not going to be that productive. They're doing fantastic. They've got high, they're getting a lot of yards when they throw the football. They're not throwing picks, and they're getting a lot of yards rushing the ball. So this is an offense that could do basically everything that you want to do. as an offense, and it gives the Eagles defense a huge challenge, maybe bigger than what they had last week.
Yeah, Casey, you mentioned the dual threat of Tyrod Taylor. There's a guy who obviously the crux of that running game, while it's shady, the reason they're top 4 in the league is the fact they have the two guys, and Taylor can take the ball down and move it with his legs. Now, Bill Davis tends to like to play that single high look time and time again. That could be very costly against a quarterback that can sort of run the football right up the back of turned defensive backs. Do you see that as a potential issue for the Eagles?
I'm hoping that Bill Davis is saying we have to take Sammy Watkins out of the game at all costs. I don't want them looking at trying to stop McCoy as much as you want to stop McCoy for obvious reasons for what happened with him changing teams and all, and you want to do that. You've got to stop Watkins because they go out to try to stop McCoy and say, hey, we're gonna go 8 in the box, we're gonna stop the running game. Watkins will tear this secondary up. I mean, if I'm Davis, I'm trying to stop Watkins no matter what I have to. If I got to put 2 guys on him, and I mean like put 2 guys on him, I mean 2 guys straight up, or just make sure that he always has some sort of over-the-top help and don't give him anything deep. I'm doing that because Watkins is the real guy you gotta be careful about with this offense.
Casey Joyner, football scientist, ESPN.com, NFL Insider. Let's kind of transition to some other games this weekend. Now, you're right on the site how the struggling Atlanta Falcons can salvage their season. This is a team, Casey, that's lost 5 in a row against teams like Tampa, against Indianapolis, against San Francisco. They got an undefeated Carolina Panthers team this weekend. So how can the Falcons salvage their season, Casey?
I think they've not been trusting Matt Ryan in their passing again. It's the gist of the article is that they need to open it up and let him go vertical. Actually, stretch vertical. Stretch vertical is passes. They travel 20 more yards downfield. They got Julio Jones. You think, hey, they must be throwing a ton of those passes to Julio Jones. Julio Jones ranks tied for 16th in stretch vertical passes. I mean, Travis Benjamin has more stretch vertical passes than Julio Jones. So they're not going deep to him enough. And Julio complained last week that, hey, they're not throwing him passes to the end zone. 11 tight ends have more end zone targets than Julio Jones this year. So they need to open it up, throw to Julio a whole lot more, and get Carolina into a shootout because that's the kind of game you could beat Carolina in. That's what the Saints nearly beat them in last week, and that's the problem for Carolina is they can get in the shootout games, and those are 50-50 propositions.
Casey, very interesting game tonight to kick off the action in Week 14. 2 potential playoff teams. Certainly Arizona is going to be there. Minnesota's still in good shape despite the fact they were beaten so badly last week by Seattle. Put a little context into the fact of the defensive injuries the Vikings are going through because they're without a difference maker at all 3 levels of their defense. Is there any way they can overcome that against Carson Palmer?
They ran vertical yard per attempt since I believe it's week 9. They're allowing a ton of deep passes. They're missing both their starting safeties. Their cornerbacks are not playing quite as well as they were earlier. Carson Palmer, the Cardinals' offense, they're one of the best vertical offenses in the league. I think they're in the top 3 in vertical pass attempts and in vertical yards. So I mean, this is a tailor, and Minnesota's on the road on a short tailor-made for Arizona to just start airing this thing out and put Minnesota's offense in a bad place. I mean, it's like I didn't think Adrian Peterson, who struggled last week, could struggle then this week just from a game flow perspective. This is not a good matchup for Minnesota.
Casey Joyner, football scientist, ESPN.com, NFL Insider. Now, we call you an NFL Insider, but I noticed that you've been doing a lot of college football stuff, the college football playoff. Those guys are set. Clemson and Oklahoma, Alabama, and Michigan State on the other side. Now, you also write, Casey, how Oklahoma can win the college football playoff. How can the Sooners win the college football playoff, Casey?
That gives an analysis of each one of their potential matchups, both the Clemson matchup in the Orange Bowl and then if they were to play Alabama or Michigan State in the championship game. And basically it boils down to, for the most part, that they have the type of offense that is tested against other tough offenses. And Clemson, Michigan State, and Alabama, none of them have offenses that match up with Oklahoma's if we start looking deep dive at the metrics. So I think Oklahoma just needs to say we need to get into one of those Big 12 games we're used to getting into, where both teams are going to put up a lot of points because we have a higher-powered offense than any of these guys. And even Alabama, the one weakness they have on defense is that they give up a lot of stretch vertical passes. They're like the bottom 10 of college football in a lot of metrics against stretch vertical passes. So I think Oklahoma just needs to go, put the foot to the pedal to the floor, and if they do that, I think they can come away with the championship.
Casey, we always thought I'm a big proponent of the college football playoff. I think it's a great thing, but no matter how many teams you put into it, 4, 8, there's always going to be a question of was there a better team left out? Who do you think is the best team that's not in the mix, and could they have played with the 4 teams that are in the mix?
You got to go Stanford. You got to go Pac-12 champ. Because as good as they played, Hogan might be you can make him the college football MVP if you couldn't make him the college football, the Heisman Trophy winner. I think they need to go to 8 teams in college football just because if you have a Power 5 champion that isn't in there, in most cases you're going to have a deserving team, and you're going to have at least one other team. You can say, wow, they didn't, like Ohio State, hey, they didn't win their conference, but boy, they really deserve to be in the playoffs. I think until you go to 8, there's going to be quite. Once you get to 8, I think if you're saying, okay, this is the 9th best team, they didn't win their conference, but they weren't one of the 3 remaining teams, I think a lot of question marks could go away. But I think eventually they're going to have to go to 8 and switch some of these other bowls over to playoff games.
All right, back to the NFL. I want to get your thoughts on a couple of matchups here. The Bengals and the Steelers. We heard today Marvin Jones came out and said that this game's going to be, quote, bloody. Big Ben loves playing the Bengals. I'm sure the Bengals love playing the Steelers. And this is a big game for Pittsburgh in the playoff chase. How about this matchup this weekend, Casey? Pittsburgh and Cincinnati.
Cincinnati's going to be down one of their top corners, and even though they played a low-scoring game the first time around, they've played a lot of high-scoring games in the past, and I have a feeling that Pittsburgh is going to, as we were just mentioning, going to put the pedal to the floor and say we want to get this into a shootout game, because I don't think Cincinnati, as good as their offense has been in some ways, I don't think they're capable of keeping up in a shootout, and Pittsburgh's done it before, so I have a feeling that this could be one of those 42-28 games, and that it would play very well into Pittsburgh's hands if they were to be able to turn it into that kind of contest.
Chatting with Casey Joyner, the football scientist, ESPN.com. I wanted to get your thoughts on the Green Bay Packers. Now, despite the Hail Mary, this has not been the same offense over the past month plus. What do you see going on with the Packers? Why so many struggles? Why has it been so difficult for that team to get going on that side of the football?
Offensive line, as good as there's a lot of things he can work on. He can't work on bad offensive line play, and they haven't been run blocking very well either. So if you can't get if you're missing an offensive line, or if we found out with New England last week, they've got offensive line troubles and they're having big problems that they shouldn't be having. Same thing with Green Bay. They've got offensive line issues, and if they don't get them fixed, and they're banged up front again this week, I don't think they lose this game, but if they don't get them fixed, then they're not going anywhere in the playoffs.
Sunday night matchup, Casey. New England at Houston. We saw the Patriots with the Eagles last week. They are really banged up. Not sure about Gronkowski. He's probably not going to play. Amendola, he's back, but I'm sure he's still feeling the effects of that injury. And Houston, they tend to play, well at home, obviously, but these primetime games, J.J. Watt loves being in primetime. You saw him beat the Bengals earlier on in the season. How about this matchup this weekend, Casey? New England at Houston.
New England's going to have to do everything it can to get away from the Houston defensive line. It's going to be a ton of short passes, a ton of quick types of runs and things, because physically they don't match up at all against the Houston defensive line. The only problem for Houston is they've got DeAndre Hopkins, might be the best receiver in the NFL, but they don't have anything else behind him. So if you're Bill Belichick, going into that matchup, if we stop Hopkins, they don't have anything else. They're not going to run the football, and they have no other targets to speak of in their passing game. So you look for Belichick to say, Nuke, you're not doing anything against this defense, and for Houston to just not have enough firepower to keep up, even if their defensive line plays well.
Okay, Casey, want to go big picture on you here for a minute, and I want you to pick the lesser of the 3 evils. We got a month to go. 3 5-7 teams. Washington Redskins, New York Giants, Philadelphia Eagles. Heck, even throw the Dallas Cowboys in there 4-8. If they win out, who is going to win the dreadful NFC East?
Oh, man. It's probably only going to take 7 wins. I don't think you're not even going to have to get to 8-8 doing this division. I happen to think it probably will be the Eagles because if I'm looking at the Giants, I'm seeing too many weaknesses. They can't run the ball at all. It's not like where Philadelphia's having a little bit of problem here and there running the football. Philadelphia generally has been able to run the football. Giants cannot run the football. They're a one-dimensional team. Dallas can't throw the football because Castle ranks next to last in vertical yards per attempt since 2009 among quarterbacks at 60 starts. So you've got major weaknesses there. I just think that Philadelphia has fewer weaknesses than the other team, and I think that if they play up to their potential, they can do more than the other teams can. So I would say Philadelphia right now, but again, it's such a toss-up of this division right now.
All right, football scientist Casey Joyner, and ESPN NFL insider, ESPN.com. Casey, thank you very much. Enjoy the games and enjoy TLC on Sunday night.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.